The Indiana Fever gave us an epic game. Imagine this, Caitlyn Clark, the rookie who's been turning the league upside down, played all 45 minutes of a game that went into overtime. Yeah, you heard that right, 45 minutes. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. Clark not only led the Fever to a hard-fought 104-100 victory over the Atlanta Dream, but she also became the fastest player in WNBA history to reach 300 career assists. And as if that wasn't enough, her teammate, Aliyah Boston, chose this same night to have the best game of her career so far. Go ahead and subscribe to the channel because we're about to dive into the details of this electrifying game right now. The first quarter started hot. With the Fever and Dream trading baskets, Clark showed early on that her aim was dialed in, hitting a three-pointer in the first few minutes.
Back to Clark, sidesteps Howard, she will launch and knock down a three.
But the Atlanta Dream wasn't intimidated, with Rhyne Howard responding with her own accurate shots. The score at the end of the first quarter, 22-21 for the Fever, a tight start that already indicated the battle that was to come. In the second quarter, things got even more interesting. The Dream came out strong, led by Howard and Aliyah Gray, managing to open up a 6-point lead. But the Fever didn't give up. Lexi Hull stepped in, hitting two vital three-pointers to keep the Fever in the game. However, the Dream got the better of this period, ending the first half ahead, 48-44. If you thought the game was already hot, the third quarter took everything to another level. The Dream opened up a 16-point lead. It seemed like the game was slipping away from the Fever, but that's where the magic of Caitlyn Clark and company comes in. Clark started finding her angles, dishing out precise assists and hitting crucial shots. Aliyah Boston dominated the boards, grabbing important rebounds and converting them into points. The Fever cut the difference to just 3 points at the end of the third quarter, 69-66 for the Dream. The fourth period was one of the most exciting moments of the season. It was a true battle of titans. Clark continued her mastery, orchestrating the Fever's attack with surgical precision. Boston was unstoppable near the basket. The game was tied several times in the final minutes. With 18 seconds on the clock, Boston converted a crucial basket, tying the game at 90-90 and sending the game into overtime. The 5 extra minutes were pure adrenaline. Clark and Boston continued their dominance, but the Dream wouldn't give up. It was a back and forth of baskets until the final seconds. In the end, Clark's experience and calmness at the free throw line sealed the victory for the Fever, 104-100. The Indiana team is evolving more and more, and the performances in this game are showing good signs with the playoffs approaching. Clark, my friends, what can we say about her that hasn't already been said? Well, how about this? She played all 45 minutes of the game. It's crazy, I know, but the numbers don't lie. Clark finished the night with 26 points, 12 assists, and 5 rebounds. That's not just a double-double, it's a demonstration of total court dominance. But the most impressive thing, Clark became the fastest player in WNBA history to reach 300 career assists. We're talking about a rookie breaking records that seem untouchable. Her court vision is simply surreal. If Clark was the maestro, Aliyah Boston was the unstoppable force. Folks, Boston had the best game of her career so far. We're talking 30 points and 13 rebounds. That's not just a double-double, it's a statement of dominance. Boston was a constant presence near the basket, converting Clark's assists into easy points and creating second chances with her offensive rebounds. Her efficiency was impressive, making 11 of 16 field goal attempts. And we can't forget to talk about Kelsey Mitchell. While Clark and Boston were stealing the headlines, Mitchell quietly had an extremely efficient night. With 21 points and an impressive 50% field goal percentage, she was the crucial third pillar for the Fever's victory. Mitchell showed why she's one of the best shooters in the league, hitting crucial shots when the team needed them most. The combination of these three players, Clark orchestrating, Boston dominating inside, and Mitchell threatening from outside, forms a trio that could take the Fever far in the playoffs. And speaking of playoffs, with performances like this, the Fever is showing that they're not here just to participate, but to compete for the title. The turnaround in the third quarter was a decisive moment. Remember when I mentioned that the Dream opened up a 16-point lead? That was the moment when many teams would have given up, but not the Fever, and certainly not Caitlyn Clark. She initiated a sequence of plays that completely changed the course of the game, hitting a three-pointer, followed by 2 consecutive assists to Aliyah Boston. Suddenly, the 16-point difference started to melt away. This was the moment we saw Clark's true champion mentality. She not only scored points, but elevated the game of the entire team. This game was a microcosm of the Fever's entire season. Moments of brilliance mixed with adversity, overcoming challenges, and a touch of controversy. But above all, it showed the heart and determination of this young team led by Clark and Boston. Now, folks, we can't talk about this game without addressing a controversial issue: the officiating. Fever fans are furious, and honestly, it's hard to blame them. The numbers don't lie. The Fever only went to the free throw line 25 times during the entire game, including overtime. Compared to the Dream's 18 trips, that might not seem so bad, right? Wrong. When you consider Clark's aggressive style of play and Boston's dominance in the paint, that number is surprisingly low. There were several crucial moments where fouls seemed obvious, but the whistles remained silent. Boston, despite her dominant presence in the paint, only went to the free throw line 8 times. There were at least 3 occasions where she was visibly pushed during offensive rebounds without any call. But here's the real problem. This lack of calls not only affects the score, but also forces players to compensate in other ways. Clark, for example, had to play even more aggressively, repeatedly driving into the defense, looking for fouls that never came. This not only increases the risk of injuries, but also contributes to fatigue. And speaking of fatigue, it's impossible not to relate this inconsistent officiating to the fact that Clark played all 45 minutes. When you can't count on fair calls, every possession becomes crucial, making it even harder for the coach to take his star off the court. This controversy raises serious questions about the consistency of officiating in the WNBA. Are rising stars like Clark and Boston receiving the same treatment as established veterans? And if not, how does this affect not only individual games, but the development of these young players? One thing is certain: if this trend continues, not only is the integrity of the games at risk, but also the health and longevity of some of the most exciting players the league has ever seen. The WNBA needs to address this issue, and fast, before it starts to overshadow the brilliant basketball being played on the court. And it's not just the physical aspect that's being tested. Clark is constantly reading the game, making split-second decisions, and carrying the weight of expectations of an entire franchise. This mental wear can be as harmful as the physical. The longer a player spends on the court, especially when tired, the greater the risk of injuries. A moment of inattention or a wrong movement can result in weeks or even months off the court. And we can't forget about the long-term impact. Clark isn't just a Fever star now. She's the future of the franchise and potentially the league. Demanding so much from her so early in her career could have long-term consequences. Let's compare with other league stars. Aja Wilson, last season's MVP, averages 32 minutes per game. Breanna Stewart, another superstar, plays an average of 34 minutes. Clark is consistently playing more than 35 minutes per game, and now we have this 45-minute game. This is not sustainable. And here's the dilemma. The Fever needs Clark on the court to win games in the playoffs, and that's why they need her healthy and in top form during the postseason. The league and the Fever are walking a fine line. On one hand, Clark is delivering historic performances and attracting more attention to the WNBA than ever before. On the other, there's a real risk of burnout, or worse, a serious injury. What the Fever and the WNBA need to consider is more rigorous workload management, developing a stronger supporting cast to relieve pressure on Clark, and possibly league intervention to protect young stars from being overworked. One thing is certain, if we want to see Caitlyn Clark shining in the playoffs and for many seasons ahead, something needs to change. The question is, will the Fever act before it's too late? But let's go beyond the playoffs and talk about Clark's bigger impact on the WNBA. The numbers don't lie. Fever games are consistently among the most watched of the season. This game against the Dream sold out with 7 times 274 fans. That's not common for a WNBA game. Clark is changing the way people see women's basketball. Her ability to make impossible passes and hit long-distance shots is attracting even fans who traditionally only watch men's basketball. With increased attention, there's more pressure on the league to improve, whether in terms of officiating, conditions for players, or media coverage. And we can't ignore the partnership factor here. Clark and Boston aren't just great individually. They complement each other in a way that few duos in WNBA history have done. This is redefining what it means to have a dynamic duo in the league. Looking to the future, it's hard not to get excited. If Clark is doing this as a rookie, imagine what she'll be able to do with more experience. And with Boston by her side, the sky's the limit for the Fever. But here's the big question. How will the league capitalize on this moment? How to ensure that the Caitlyn Clark effect isn't just a passing wave, but a catalyst for sustainable growth in the WNBA? One thing is certain, the WNBA will never be the same after Caitlyn Clark's arrival. And if this game is any indication, we're just at the beginning of something truly special. We're witnessing something unique in the WNBA. Caitlyn Clark isn't just a rising star. She's redefining what's possible in women's basketball. But with great power comes great responsibility and great risks. The tension is rising. Each game seems to bring a new record, a new controversy, a new level of expectation. Fans are euphoric, but also apprehensive. Critics are impressed, but skeptical about the sustainability of this pace. And in the middle of all this is Caitlyn Clark, a 22-year-old carrying the hopes of a franchise, the expectations of a league, and the dreams of countless girls who see her as a role model. The big question hanging in the air is, how far can Caitlyn Clark go? And more importantly, at what cost? We're on the brink of something extraordinary in women's basketball, but we're also walking a fine line between greatness and excess. The next move by the Fever, the WNBA, and Clark herself could define not just this season, but the future of the sport. The clock is ticking, the playoffs are approaching, and all eyes are on Caitlyn Clark. What will happen next? Well, that's something no one can predict with certainty, but one thing is for sure. We won't take our eyes off for even a second. Hey, folks, if you've made it this far, it's because you know we're living a unique moment in the WNBA. Caitlyn Clark is rewriting the rules of the game, but she's also facing enormous challenges. I want to hear from you. What do you think? Is the Fever demanding too much from Clark, or is she simply an extraordinary athlete who can handle this load? How do you think the league should handle inconsistent officiating? Is it affecting the quality of the game? And what about the future? Can Clark and Boston lead the Fever to the title? Or is it too early for that kind of expectation? Leave your opinions in the comments. I love reading what you think and always try to respond when possible. And if you enjoyed this analysis and want to stay on top of everything happening in the WNBA, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell. That way you won't miss any videos about basketball. Thanks for watching and see you next time